Straight like that, man. We do it.
Michael.
Straight like that, man. We do it.
Michael.
Hey. Welcome to the Melanated Perspectives. I'm your host, Mike Knyght. And today we have another installment of our Black Businesses in CSRA edition series. And when we have that series, we don't like to limit it to just people who have businesses in the CSRA area, but we also like to extend it to those who are native to the CSRA area and who went away and did great things. With that being said, here today we have my guest, Miss Dominica Henderson-Reece. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you for having me. Yes, I am Dominica Henderson-Reece, born and raised here in Augusta, Georgia, and I'm just happy to be on the podcast with you today.
Glad to have you. Little tidbit I'll go ahead and share and throw it out there to you all. Dominica is actually my sister. One of my, she's my third sister to be exact. I have so many sisters. She's my third oldest sister to be exact. And she's like I said, we don't like to just limit it to local businesses in the CSRA. She's actually in town for the holiday season for her and her family from LA.
Yeah, we don't make it home as often as we used to. That's what happens when, I guess, you go off and start a family and things get a little bit more difficult and complex in terms of scheduling. But I always love coming back and spending the time with the family and just seeing, just the area and how it's grown and what's happening. That's always exciting too.
Yeah. It's always great to have you guys back in town, man. Always. That's a little short intro about yourself, but you like to, tell the people out there who don't know, who's not familiar with you, a little bit more about yourself, a little bit in depth.
Yeah, absolutely. So, again, I'm born and raised here in Augusta. Key and I, we grew up in South Augusta. I am graduate of Glen Hills High School. I'm also an alumni of the former Augusta State University as well. And so, Augusta is home. I did, again, spend some time here. And then once I graduated from college, I moved to Charleston initially, and I had a little stint in Charleston, South Carolina. I was accepted a job back here in Augusta, Georgia, working for a marketing organization, and that was how that was my introduction to financial services industry. Was that opportunity that arose there.
Okay, that sounds good. You actually almost started the interview for me. That was kind of like a couple of my questions right there, but we're going to go ahead and get into that. That was one of my first questions was going to be exactly how did you, your path go into that financial industry?
Yeah, the thing is that, you and I, the way we were raised by our grandmother, very, very old school, if you would. A child stays in a child's place. Finances were never discussed. So me being a certified financial planner, independent investment advisor is not anything that was on my trajectory.
Right.
I didn't even know anything about business, finance, any of that. And as a matter of fact, I did not go to school for this. I majored. I'm a chemist on paper, believe it or not. So this is something that I like to say happened to me. It wasn't anything that I sought out. I was fortunate enough to meet a local individual, as a matter of fact, a gentleman by the name of J. Timothy Shelnut.
Mr. Shelnut.
Yeah, very wealthy individual. He has a building down at the Medical College of Georgia that's named after him. He was on the Board of Regents for the state of Georgia. And it was him that introduced me to this world that I now am involved in today. And actually, at my graduation,
Right.
he spoke. He was one of the speakers at my graduation from Augusta State University.
Amazing.
And he then said, Dominica, what are you doing after this? And I was not interested in staying in Augusta at all. I was like, oh, I'm done. I'm out. I'm moving to Charleston. And he said to me then, he was like, listen, I would love to have you work for me. And again, I had tunnel vision. I was just so focused on getting out of the area. And, you know, the thing is too, I think that was part of just me and maturing and wanting to, you know, be grown,
Right.
you know, as they say. And so I had to venture out in order to, you know, get pulled back in, if you would. And that's what happened. But so I moved to Charleston. I worked for a labor company. I was literally selling day labor. So anywhere I saw a crane up in the air, I would go up and speak to the foreman and try to see if I could sell day labor to them to help. But that was tough, you know, and growing up the way that we grew up, we didn't grow up in a 2-parent household.
Right.
I was 100% self-supported throughout college. I went to school full time. I worked full time. I was living off on my own. And so when I took that job, it was a sales job, and that was difficult because 98% of my salary was based upon
whether you made sales or not.
Exactly. It was strictly compensation. Just based upon sales revenue. And when you're starting out, that's extremely difficult. And 3 months in, you know, it got to a point where I literally couldn't buy a loaf of bread.
Right.
And I was like, I have to do something different. And so maybe taking a salary position isn't so bad after all. And that's how I ended up back in Augusta. And that's also how I started in financial services.
Okay. So your journey to Charleston pretty much gave you some experience, which in turn segued you back to your home.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So was that this part one, I say phase one of your struggle?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, looking back, yeah, it was, because that taught me a lot. You know, obviously you want to go out and venture out and do your own thing, but you sometimes learn some hard lessons along the way. You know, and again, being in a completely different city, I knew one person that was my very best friend at the time.
Yeah.
But I was out there by myself and again, working and not really, you know, having income to support myself. And again, we didn't come from a household where we had family that we could rely on and say, hey, I'm a little short, or, you know, had a savings account that we could then, you know, just draw on or anything like that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it was a completely different scenario and situation comparing myself to, say, my best friend at the time that was doing the same thing.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to get back into that part right there because that's some of my questions I had lined up. Let me ask you this. What exactly, let's say once you made it back home from Charleston, what was some of your motivation for changing your path from I guess that's basically what you were doing was like sales to the financial path industry? I know you mentioned Mr. Shellnut. So what exactly was your motivation once you got back here?
So motivation once I got back to Augusta was just really, honestly, at that time, because I was young, you know, I was early 20s. It was just more so me being able to continue to support myself.
Right.
I didn't really, I had no idea what I was stepping into. So it wasn't this grand or elaborate plan where I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I didn't have a plan. Right. It wasn't written down for me. I was at a point where I knew I had to do something different than what I was currently doing. And this avenue led me to a place where I could do that and feel comfortable. And so that's what happened.
Cool. That sounds amazing. That sounds really exciting, actually. Let me ask you this. Did you find any support as far as when you first got into the industry, being a very young black woman at the time? Did you find a lot of support or a lot of resistance?
Ooh, that's a really good question. So, in my position initially starting out in the industry, I was kind of back office because I was a wholesaler.
Okay.
So, when you think about the financial services industry, there, I mean, that is so complex in and of itself because it could cover so many different job descriptions and avenues. It's a pretty broad, right, industry. So for me, though, what I was a wholesaler. So go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you, but you that's the second time you mentioned wholesaler. Exactly what is that in the financial world? I know what wholesaling is in the real estate field.
Right.
What is wholesaling in the financial world?
Right. Great. So sorry about that. Yeah. So as a wholesaler, so like I'll back it up just one step further. So I said that I moved back to Augusta and I was working for Tim, who had a marketing organization.
Right.
So when you think about financial services, particularly financial advisors, then as a financial advisor, you then contract with different insurance companies typically.
Okay.
One of the layers between that relationship between the advisor and the insurance company is often a marketing organization, an independent marketing organization. That's what IMO stands for, and that's what we were here in Augusta.
Okay.
And it was nationwide. We represented agents all across the country, right? So from Hawaii, California, all the way, obviously here to Georgia, but all across. We had agents in all the states. And so as a wholesaler for the marketing organization, I was basically the liaison. So when say for instance, an advisor is sitting in front of a client and the client is 50 years old and they have X number of dollars and they're looking for this specific product or strategy. What would then happen typically is that advisor would then call me up and say, hey, Dominica, this is the scenario I have. What are the top 3 options that I should go back and present to my client? So I was responsible for doing the research, doing the back end work for the advisor. And then the advisor would then go out and relay that to their client. Whatever they decide to do, obviously that was dependent upon that client advisor relationship, but they would rely on me to provide them with the information that was necessary so then they could take that back to their client.
Oh, okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
And so as a wholesaler, I had to be knowledgeable, and this was my introduction, right? So this was my introduction to the industry, and this is how I learned the industry. It was largely dealing with insurance companies. Again, these are some of your major big insurance companies, your Midlands, your LSWs, your former INGs, your former Chase, Zurich, etc. We had relationships with all the various insurance companies. And then so I was responsible for knowing basically all of their products. I had to know all of their products
Everything they offer, because you in turn have to introduce them to some potential clients.
Right, because the agents would then rely on me to then feed the information to them.
Got you.
Yeah.
Got you. Okay, that's good. That's good. Let me ask you this question. Are there many women in the financial industry?
No.
Okay, and that's going to give you I want this to be like a 2-part answer.
Right.
Are there many, you already answered me part, no, there's not a lot of women. Are there many black women?
And that's a double no.
Ooh,
no,
okay.
It's not. I mean, and I've been in the industry for 16 years now. So I'm 16 years in. And even working as a wholesaler, you would see, so when you go into conferences, you would see ladies, right? You would see women, but typically they're the assistants, they're doing some type of administrative type work, but actually being, having that core relationship and being the advisor and being the business owner, no, it is a male dominated industry. And if I were to get very, specific in regards to that, it's the all white man's industry, right? So oftentimes when I would go to conferences, again, even early on in my career, that's what dominated the industry at the time. And I am happy to say that over the course, of the time that I've been in the industry, I am seeing more women, but again, it's not anywhere near where it should be.
Predominantly male driven.
It certainly is.
So let me ask you this. I've met the woman for the firm you work with, you associated with.
Yes.
I believe that's Haussmann Financial.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. How did you come about to actually find a firm that was ran by a woman?
Yeah, so that was one of the things that happened to me as well. I feel like a lot of my career trajectory has all been kind of not being afraid to just put myself out there or ask questions.
Right.
But quite honestly, I contacted Trudy Haussmann, who's the owner of Haussmann Financial, which is the firm that I'm associated with. I contacted Trudy while I was in Augusta after I gave birth to Kinsley. Yeah, to my youngest.
You had a previous relationship with her already?
No, I did not know her at all. So I'm a certified financial planner.
Right.
And so I was on the CFP's website. And on the CFP's website, they have advertisements for different job openings. So oftentimes other certified financial planners can go on and post openings that they have available.
Gotcha.
And she actually had a post, a job opening for an assistant. And at the time, I had taken like a 2-year hiatus because I had just started my family. I just had Zoe, who's my oldest. And then I was here with Kinsley, and I was like, okay, I've had 2 years off. I need to really get back, you know, into the swing of things. And I contacted her, and I, again, that was by way of the CFP's website. And literally the day I arrived back in California, I had my initial phone interview. A week later, I had my in-person interview, and I would say a week after that, she brought me on board as an advisor, not even as an assistant.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So, I hear you said you've been in the financial industry for 16 years. How much of that time have you spent actually at Haussmann?
Yeah, so 8 years. Because yes,
gauge you by your
exactly. That's the good easy part of it. I can be like, how old is Kinsley?
Okay.
Yes, so it's been 8 years. I've been with Haussmann Financial for 8 years.
That's great. That's great. So, what are some of the your best experiences working, one, on the West Coast, California, and two, in the financial market that's a male-dominated driven over there?
Yeah, so that's a really good question too. One of the things I really enjoy about working on the West Coast, and it's not really fair, but it's just the reality of it, is oftentimes, especially in my industry, because I'm dealing with assets, I'm dealing with real dollars here.
Right.
A lot of, like me, for instance, I was shell-shocked when I first went to California because the sticker price on everything is so much higher, right, than what it is here. But at the same time, the level of income that individuals earn are significantly higher as well.
Okay.
Right. I remember my first salary job, I was making $24,000 a year, right, at the age of...
In California?
No. And here in Augusta, Georgia.
Okay.
That's when I moved back. When I was recruited out to California at 24, I was making $75,000. So as a 24-year-old, being able to move out to the West Coast and make $75,000 a year, that's significant for me because that was more money than I had ever seen.
Definitely a great game changer.
Yeah, it was. And then but in order to be able to continue that type of income and lifestyle, obviously you have to have the clients that are there to support it. And I will say that makes a difference. You know, so when you talk about demographics and employment and the wages that people earn, when you have that type of scenario where your average client is earning a couple of $100,000 a year and they're consistently saving, they're very diligent in those practices, that makes a difference when in comparison, say, to other places that are maybe more rural, where they don't have the same level of income. Now, with that, there's another side of that because at the same time, the cost of living isn't as expensive.
Right.
But it certainly makes it a lot easier to then continue to grow your practice. And to have a successful, I shouldn't say successful practice, because you can still have a successful practice regardless of where you are in the country. It's just a matter of knowing your market, understanding your market, and then really, tailoring in and building those relationships with the clients.
Right.
But I will say, certainly for me, just being able to work with individuals with such, what I consider, especially again, coming from our background, high levels of income, and then just not having to, I shouldn't say fight, but the willingness that they have and the understanding to want to be diligent in their savings and their investings and their growing of their wealth.
Is that the clients you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. Let me see. What else? What was on? Oh yeah. How difficult was it moving to the West Coast alone back in, what was it, 05?
Yeah, it was 2005.
How difficult was that experience?
Honestly, I'm not your typical individual, so so for me it was exciting. Okay. Like I was and excited.
At the time you were what, 20 something?
Yes, I was early 20s. I was young.
Yeah.
I did not have any responsibilities at the time. I wasn't married. I did not have any kids.
Right.
And so the idea that I would be able to move out to California and live.
That's pretty much every kid, especially a kid from where we come from. That's
exactly.
Dream,
yeah. But I will say, with the glitz and the glam, there were times though where, you do miss home. And,
right.
Again, I moved out there with my business associate. I had mentors, Paul and Jean Vogel, which
right.
you know and are familiar with. And that was pretty much it. I knew all of 4 people there.
That's amazing.
When I moved there. But I think my family was instrumental. I did come home a lot in the early days.
Right.
I was constantly, like flying home and getting that feel. And
that
I did.
Got old quick.
Yeah.
That got old quick.
It did. And so, church was instrumental.
Yeah.
Building, just relationships, right, was instrumental. But also the hustle and the grind was really important for me, and that really kept me focused too.
Yeah, kept you centered and focused on everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could imagine that it would take a lot of that to stay. Yeah, in that type of an industry, you would have to stay focused to be have potential, to excel.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this: what advice could you offer, or what insight would you give young women, young Black women, young women of any color, it doesn't matter, but young women to go into the field, or who are not even interested in the field, to let them know the potential that's there for them in building a career as a CFA, CPA, those types of careers?
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. And again, I'm just like you. I didn't grow up with the background. I didn't grow up with an understanding. I didn't go to school for this. It was, again, something that happened to me.
Chemistry.
Right? And I say explore it. It doesn't take a whole lot to get started, right? So I've mentioned that I'm a certified financial planner, but when I started out, I wasn't. I was a simple financial advisor, which any of you can become by taking a 40-hour course if you're residing here in the state of Georgia at the state of Georgia. And so long as you pass that course, then technically you're a financial advisor. Once you do that, I say partner with someone, work as an assistant, learn the business, learn the trades, learn the strategies, take all that you can and work your way up from, say, that assistant role to then being a junior advisor. You know, as a junior advisor, you then have that senior advisor who's going to, you know, bring you under the wing. The trouble, not the trouble part, the difficult part is then making sure you're with a firm who believes in you and that you can believe in as well, right? Because there are, again, financial advisors are a dime a dozen, but do your due diligence, do your homework, you know, you can do background checks, check to see how big their business is. And let me say this, because our industry is so very well dominated, again, by older white men, that also means there are a lot of practices out there who more than likely do not have a succession plan in place. Right?
So that what you're saying, that they possibly will be looking to bring on someone to keep the business going, or even expand their business to add more diversity.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Because diversity, and not only in our industry, but if you look just, you know, here nationally, globally, diversity in all industries is just at the forefront. So women of color, they're looking for. So I think the opportunities are out there. It's just a matter of maximizing it and going after it. And it can be very lucrative. You know, when I first started, it was so interesting because we talk about Trudy, right. Who's the owner. And let me speak on her just a little, just for a quick moment, because one of the things that attracted me to her was that she is female. She's married and she has 4 kids and she's a boss. And for that reason alone, I was like, you know what? That's the blueprint right there. Right. And the other thing is that Trudy was willing, though. She was willing to have someone come in, and she saw something in me just like I saw something in her, and it's been a great partnership. Yeah.
And I met Trudy Haussmann, by the way. Hey, Trudy.
and so that's really important. But, you know, having said that, you know, you can, the opportunities are there. It's just finding a network. Go to the CFP's website. The CFP's website is not secure. You can go in and look for opportunities. If there are local advisors in your area, in your region, reach out to them. Oftentimes they need help, you know, and again, even if you have to start out as an assistant, do that, work your way up, become a junior advisor. And then again, with so many older practices, a lot of times family, they have no interest in the business. Right. So even coming in or even presenting yourself or positioning yourself in such a fashion where you can even go in and maybe purchase that practice. So then that way you're going in, you already have a book of business under you, and then you just maintain and continue to grow and excel from there. So there are opportunities that are available. It's just a matter of navigating your way through it.
Taking the
absolutely
necessary steps to get there. Man, that's amazing. That's amazing. You've given us a great wealth of knowledge. I'm pretty sure anyone who sees this episode, you know, would say the same. I'm glad you was able to stop by. You know, I know, you know, you all's trip home is coming to an end. You know, like I say, I'm glad you was able to squeeze this time in for us, man.
Absolutely.
On this little segment of our focus on businesses in the CSRA and abroad. Well, you know, we're going to try to wrap this up, man. And we thank each and every one of you all for joining us again on the Melanated Perspective. We ask that you like, share, and subscribe to our podcast and keep supporting us. We want to give a big shout out to my sis, Dominica Henderson-Reece, again for stopping by with us with her beautiful family who's behind the scenes. And we can't wait to see you all next week on our next episode.
Thanks for having me.
All right.